So I was called to serve in the Honduras San Pedro Sula West mission, and it was by far the best experience of my life. It was so awesome. I was really excited and got to the airport. I was really nervous too in the airplane going there. I went to the Guatemala MTC, and so I'm from Utah, and so all my siblings had just been dropped off at the Provo MTC, and so it was kind of scary for me to just get dropped off at the airport and say bye to my family and have to figure out the whole plane thing by myself because I had never really been on planes. And I was kind of scared, but I felt comforted too, and I just remember praying in the airplane. Heavenly Father, I'm yours. I'm in your hands. Do what you need with me. I'll be there. And then I got to the Guatemala MTC, and it was wonderful. The Guatemala MTC is so fun, and it's close-knit, and it's kind of smaller than the Provo or the Mexico MTC. They used to send missionaries to the Mexico MTC for Guatemala that are from North America, and now they send them to Guatemala. And it's so great because you get more immersed in the culture, and you get more immersed in the food as well as more similar. They mix it up between American food and food from Central America, so you get used to both, but it's not like, it doesn't hit you all at once. They have ice creams that you can eat one during every lunch, and that is so good. They have gym time every day, and that was really fun. It forced me to exercise, and I'm not very good at that. And it was so fun. We did exercise videos with our MTC president, which was awesome. And the Guatemala MTC was just amazing. It was a little overwhelming. The first time they put you in a room and they say, okay, for the next 30 minutes you're speaking Spanish, and you have to pretend like you're teaching lesson 1 to this pretend investigator, and you're like, I don't even know. I can say hola, buenos dias, but that was it. But we did it, and it was such a great experience. And I grew so much, and it was just so fun. People talk about the MTC a lot being like a prison, and they feel like they can't get out. That's not true. It all depends on your attitude. I just thought it was so, so fun. You have to give a talk. You have to prepare a talk for every single Sunday, and then they'll just call on people randomly, and you will get called before you're gone. So you can just read it off the paper too if you want. But you will give some talks in Spanish, which is really helpful as well. It is a lot of Spanish at once. It all just you can't learn a whole language in 6 weeks. It's just not possible. So I think just go with the vocab the most that you can, and you'll get by just fine. So then after the Guatemala MTC, they woke us up at 2 in the morning, and they took us to the Guatemala airport, and they flew us to then El Salvador for a layover, and then to Honduras. And getting off that airplane was so crazy. Like, heat just hit you in the face. I got there in June, so it was so hot. And I just thought my skin was going to melt off. It was the biggest, hottest wave or rush of heat I'd ever felt in my entire life. But it was awesome. And our mission president and his wife were there, and they were so wonderful. And the APs were there, and we went on a bus. And then they take you to what they called the Benque, El Benque, and that's their big steak center. I remember being confused on the bus ride. They're like, we're going to El Benque, we're going to El Benque. So I thought we were going to the bank to work out our cards or something for money, and it really was the steak center. So we get to this, and we get to the steak center, and it's the most ginormous steak center. It's like 2 floors, elevators, so nice, and nicer than anything I've ever seen here in Utah. And we get there, and we put all our stuff in, and then they gave us lessons all day. They changed it now so that your first day arriving, you go out with the sister missionary training leaders, or for the boys, they'll go out with a set of elders, and you'll actually proselyte on your very first day. And it's just tracting. Tracting in Spanish is contacting, so you'll probably forget what that word even is. But you'll go around, and it's awesome, and you're going to be so tired, but it's just great. And then the next day, they do transfers. So all the zone leaders read off a list, sister so-and-so, this is going to be your companion. And it's awesome. And then you just go with them in a bus or a taxi or however they've arranged for you to get back to your area. It was super great. I loved it. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but there's nothing to be worried about because there's so many people there to help you. Honduras is so awesome. The people are wonderful and warm and welcoming. It's not a country that it's hard to get into people's doors. It's not hard to get people to talk to you. You're not really going to deal a lot with gay marriage or polygamy or any of the political things we hear a lot here in the United States. We don't really deal with those. I may have had a question once, maybe. The people are so great. The most dominant religion there is by far the evangelical church, which kind of surprised me. I thought they'd all be Catholics, but they're evangelicals, and it's a really fun religion. They're kind of crazy, and they're wonderful. And the great thing about their religion is that they learn that everything that talks about God is good, and so they'll always welcome you into their house, because they'll just say, the word of God is always welcome in my home. Not all of them, of course, but a large majority do. Something to be aware of, something that totally caught me off guard, when we would be teaching lessons and an evangelical was there, which are like all of them. Their prayers are really interesting. They're a lot different than our prayers are. I remember sitting in my first area in a hammock, and I'm ready to teach a lesson, and they asked me to pray, and I didn't speak Spanish very well, so I was trying really hard to focus on the words so I could say the prayer right. And this guy stood up and put his hands in the air, and he was just repeating everything I said and screaming during the prayer, and I'm just like, I can't remember my Spanish, and he's just, Señor Jesus. It's just so funny. So they really do chant, and they're kind of like chant. It almost sounds like a ritual. They do a lot of memorized prayers. So that's something to be aware of. Don't be totally caught off guard when that happens. It's super funny, but it's awesome. We really spent a lot of time teaching the people to pray in the correct way. Of course, Heavenly Father hears every prayer, but it was really hard to get them to pray to Heavenly Father instead of Jesus. I don't think they really understand the distinction very well. If you tell them they're separate individual beings, they agree with you for the most part, but they just all pray to Jesus. So we always would just teach them, okay, we don't pray to Señor Jesus, we pray to Nuestro Padre Celestial, our Heavenly Father. And then to get them to say, in the name of Jesus Christ, amen, was really hard as well. They just would say, amen. And so that's a challenge, teaching them how to pray correctly. It was something we retaught every single lesson. It wasn't just like the first time teaching them. It's every lesson. And they're really shy to pray too. A lot of the people you'll teach aren't really active in any religion. They believe all the evangelical beliefs, but they don't actually go. And so they're really nervous to pray. And you will even whisper, so many times we'd even whisper in their ear what to say, to have them repeat it just to get them to say a prayer. Because no matter what we would say or do or encourage them, they were just too shy to say it in front of the group of people there. And so we'd be whispering into a 40-year-old lady's ear words, and she'd repeat. And after a while, they get comfortable, and after a few lessons, they've really heard multiple prayers. So that was really great. There are Catholics as well. I felt like they were very easy to teach. They were, their beliefs, it's really easy to teach them using scriptures that they understand. So I really enjoyed teaching them as well. Some of them are really hardcore and aren't quite as willing to allow you into their home, but they really are great. And there are so many great scriptures that you can help them understand the doctrine better, the points that they're not taught, or the points they don't understand from what they've learned. As where the evangelicals are so great and they're so kind, but they really like to have rock bands with their churches, and everything's good, and it doesn't matter what church you go to. That's really their big thing. As long as you love Jesus, you'll be saved by his grace, basically. So there's just challenges there, but they're wonderful people. And you will also run into Jehovah's Witnesses, and I just recommend being kind to them and sweet to them, but just they just love to contend, and they love to scripture bash. I had times where they'd pull out the Bible, just me standing there on the doorstep, because I didn't know a Jehovah's Witness lived in that house, and they'll just scream scriptures and want a Bible bash, and it's just, I had a lot of companions who wanted to fight back, and the spirit cannot be there. So I really just recommend just being sweet and kind to them and talking when they will listen, but if they won't listen, wait till they're ready. So the people of Honduras are great. The church has been there for a little while. It's growing. They just got a temple in Tegucigalpa. Their temple is from San Pedro, it's about 4 hours away, and from Santa Rosa and Copan, it's like 8+ hours away. So it really is a big treat for them to be able to go to the temple as well. So the mission in San Pedro is kind of the upper, if you're looking at it on a map, it's the upper left corner. So it's the west coast. We only have one area with a beach in it. It's Puerto Cortez. There used to be sisters there. There are no longer sisters there. But there are sisters in Campana, which is really close, and so on your P days you get to go. So that's really fun. I served on San Pedro. San Pedro is the hottest part probably. And the coastal part, Puerto Cortez, is really hot as well. And those are really hot, but they're fun. There's a lot of really pretty rural places. Copan, there are tons of sisters in Copan because it's really safe. It's one of the safest parts of Honduras. And so there's a lot of sisters in Copan, and it's really nice because it's actually a lot cooler there. And even in the winter, I was in the highest elevation spot on the mountain in Santa Rosa, and it actually gets cold there between December and February, March. So it's a really fun place. Their tortillas are thicker too, and they're so good. So Copan is really great. It has a lot more Catholics. Some of the main Catholic hubs are in Santa Rosa and in other places in Copan. They're also more poor there, but it's beautiful, and there's a lot of hills, so you're hiking a lot. Your calf muscles will get huge, and it will be super awesome if you're in Santa Rosa. Other areas I served in a little pueblo, or a little village, called Potrerillos. And it's amazing. I got there. It was my first area, and there are ducks and pigs and horses and chickens all walking in the street, and palm trees and dirt roads and the smallest, cutest painted pink and blue and orange houses. And it's so beautiful there. I just felt like I was really living that third world experience in that little area. So that was really fun. As for the housing is not ideal, but you get used to it. They are improving the sisters' housing. The elders kind of have to live with it, and as they should. But there's like 2 houses right now there that have air conditioning. Again, we move apartments. Like, they don't keep the same apartments for forever, so they could change. But it's not likely to have air conditioning. But if you do, your bill for electricity at the end of the month will be so expensive that it might not be worth using. Well, it's always worth it, but it depends on if you can afford it or not. We do pay our electrical bills, and they'll reimburse you, but it takes them half a month to get that money back. So that's just something to think about. So something that drove me a little crazy was not having any dish towels to dry. So if you want to take some dish towels, that's a great idea. There's no bathroom rugs to step on when you get out of the shower. So that's a big thing to pack. But you just use like an old t-shirt or a towel. You don't really have shower heads. The water just pours out from a pipe or a tube. So the houses are not ideal, but you feel safe there, and they've been blessed and consecrated, and you're happy to be there by the end of the day because you were really tired. Another cool thing is that sisters need to be home an hour earlier than the elders. So the missionary handbook says that missionaries should be in their apartment by 9, and at the very latest, if they're teaching an appointment, they could be home by 9:30. Sisters, it's an hour earlier, so we need to be home by 8, but if we're teaching, then we can come home at 8:30. And that's really nice because it gives you time to plan with your companion, and it gives you time to go to bed early, which is very helpful because you're exhausted from the day, and so I would just go to sleep after most of the time. So that was great. As for the safety, you're probably a little worried. You probably Googled San Pedro Sula, Honduras. You probably saw a lot of scary titles like Murder Capital of the World and Dangerous City on Earth. And don't worry so much. The Lord will protect you. He will guide you. You will have angels all around you helping you. I did not feel in danger First of all, the elders get the more dangerous areas, but even the elders don't run into things unless they're disobedient. So it depends a lot on your obedience and your desire to do the right things. You will hear a lot of stories. You will teach the plan of salvation very often because you'll meet a lot of people who have had family members pass away. But these are God's children, and they need the gospel just as much as anybody in a safe location would. I never felt scared. You have to be smart. You have to not walk past dark fields at night and make sure you're in lit areas when you're walking home. But it really is, you feel so safe and so comfortable. I had times where I thought to myself, if I wasn't a missionary right now walking where I'm walking, I would feel so scared and so afraid. But you just feel so protected and so safe, and the Spirit will guide you if you are doing your best to be obedient. I had experiences where I was with a companion grabbing something to eat for dinner, and we just felt the need to go home. Go home. It's not safe. Go home. So we went home. We have no idea. We didn't hear about anything happening after, but the Spirit just guided us to go home early that day. We let our district leader know that we were entering the house about 30 minutes early, and he was totally fine with it, and we did the right thing. The Spirit will guide you, and there's really not something to worry about. You are going to hear so many crazy stories, and it just breaks your heart for these people, but it makes you so grateful that you have the plan of salvation that you can teach to them. Another safety tip, don't have a lot of money on you, and don't look like a tourist. Honestly, I left my camera most days at home. Depended on the area, depended on where we were going. But it's important to not have a lot of money on you, and if you, for whatever reason, do need more money because of a purchase you're going to make on a P-Day or something, I recommend getting a camera. Sorry, not a camera. I recommend that you get like a small amount in your bag, and then the more bigger amount, hide it somewhere. Hide it in your scriptures or hide it in a pocket or whatever, because it does happen upon occasion that the buses that you take as transportation will get robbed, and it's just the best to hand them money. So if you hand them 50 to 100 lempiras, which is like $5, they'll leave you. But if you don't give them anything, they're going to make you fish. So if you have a little bit separated out just in case, that's a really smart thing to do. I never experienced a robbery on a bus, so it's not super common, but you will, you'll be blessed and you'll be protected. So yeah, the safety, don't worry too much. You'll be okay. The Lord will protect you. Your mission president is very inspired to put you where he puts you, especially the sisters. And even like as a white, blonde American girl, that don't mess with you really at all. Yeah, they'll like to annoy you, but they're not there with dangerous or violent intentions. Yeah, so I just think you're okay with safety. Don't worry about it. You will make it through. Many have, and many will. The Honduran culture is amazing. The people are so sweet. They are such a good, warm people. They will welcome you into their homes. They will give you everything off their back. They will feed you. It's hard if you go into a house and they see that you're hot and sweating, which you will be hot and sweaty every single day and every single appointment. You'll walk in and they will immediately bring you a little piece of cake, a little cup of Pepsi, and some crackers and something. They'll go buy something from the pulperia. If they are the poorest of the poor, they will still feed you every single lesson. That's another reason people gain weight. But they are so sweet. If you really don't want to eat every lesson, which you should and you're going to want to and you will, but if for whatever reason, you can just tell them you're on a diet and they'll laugh and then they'll be okay with it. And just tell them, I've gained weight and I need to lose. And they'll just laugh and say, es la baleada. They'll just tell you, you've eaten too many baleadas, which is probably true. So their culture is amazing. They are so sweet and so kind and so religious. Everyone you talk to will be, las cosas de Dios son bonitas. The things of God are so beautiful, and everything is right and everything is perfect, and God loves us, and Jesus is the best. And, they have this conception of if you're talking about Jesus or God, it is good. And so that's the reason it's so easy to get into their houses. And this sounds so crazy, but we would just walk straight into their houses sometimes without knocking. You can do that there, depending on the situation and following the Spirit. You can, if they keep their doors open because it's so hot. Their doors open, people are sitting there and talking. There were times where we just walked in and said, "Hey everyone, how are you? Hey, we're missionaries and we have an awesome message. And oh, what is that you're eating? And oh, like I like this song or something," to just kind of break the ice. And they're so cool with it. It's just weird. So they're so good, and it's easy to get into their houses, I feel like. There are some, of course, that won't let you. But if you ever have a companion or you ever hear rumors, oh, this is a hard area or it's a bad area, that is wrong. That is false. That is not true. It all depends on your attitude. Every area is a good area. I sort of look back at my mission and I think to myself that Heavenly Father needed me to kind of fix, I don't know if you want to call them broken areas, but every time I had a transfer, I started in a new area where the ward or the branch was really discouraged and everyone just didn't want to go, and there's no one here. We've talked to everybody. We've knocked on every door, and that is so not true. Every area can be so good. Every single area I got to was that way. And every single area I left with baptisms, and every single area I left loving the people with so much work that we could not fit it into our schedule, that we were running from house to house to house, trying to fit in all the appointments, because there was so much work to do. And I hate when people say that the work has been done, because it has not. 2 of my baptisms in my last area, I came and my companion was a little bit discouraged, saying that they had knocked every door and that it was a richer area and it was hard. 2 of my baptisms were literally a block away from the church, like 30 seconds walking, lived so close. And one of them was a little family of 5 that just got baptized a month ago, and people are ready. And if they've knocked on that door before, so what? You probably talked to the sister in that family. The next time somebody knocks on that door, it could be the brother, and maybe the brother's ready. It's always important to ask, is there somebody else in your house that would be willing to listen or interested? Do you know somebody who's sick? And could we go pray for that person? Who do you know that wants, we have this super awesome book that will bless your life. Do you know anyone who would want that? Do you want that book? There are just so many things you can do to get into their houses. So, sorry, that was a little sidetrack from the culture, but they are a very open, welcoming, loving people. They are very poor. There are a couple of more rich areas, but the people are very poor, and there's a lot of poverty, and that's why there is more danger there. But they are good people. The poorest of poor will feed you, and it's so fun. Something about their language with the Spanish is that they kind of make the H sound for S's. So it's not everywhere you go and it's not everyone you talk to, but there are people that'll say San Pedro Sula instead of San Pedro Sula. Most of the time they'll say San Pedro, but they'll say like nosotros instead of nosotros, which means we. So nosotros estábamos. It's just really funny. They always say the word macizo. Macizo is like awesome or cool. Que macizo. And normally when the other Hispanic missionaries arrive, they're like, that's so weird, because the word macizo, I think if you look it up in the dictionary, it means like hard, like a hard chair. So it's kind of weird that they say, that's so hard, but it's like awesome. So, and they're catrachos. That's what you say for a Honduran, or hondureño, hondureña. They're just so fun. And my favorite is they'll go, sí, hombre. They say it all the time. Sí, hombre, no sé qué. And the another word they use that's so funny is güiro. Like, it means, like, crazy numbskull kid. Like, oh, he's such a crazy wild kid. So, que güiro is eso. And it's so funny. They're just funny people. They're awesome. They're so willing to talk to you. You'll have people reaching out to you. I had baptisms where they came up to us on the street, and they said, hey, my 2016 goal was to get baptized in the true church. And you're just like, okay, awesome, we can help with that. They're very warming, welcoming, loving people. Everybody is family. Everybody is invited. They love to party. Oh, they love to party. They're late to everything. So you'll learn very quickly that if you want to have a baptism at 6 o'clock, you tell everybody that baptism is at 5:30, if not 5. And you'll get used to it. Something that was hard for me when I first got there is I was a very punctual person. So when it was 10 minutes before lesson and we were in the house studying language, I tell my companion, we need to leave. And she's like, no, we don't. And I'd say, yeah, we do. We have a lesson in 10 minutes. And she'd say, if you show up on time, you're early. You need to show up 10 minutes later. So that was something that was kind of crazy. But everyone's that way. So you'll get used to it. And then you'll have to adjust when you get back home to actually being punctual again. So it's awesome. I love the culture and I love the people. Okay, so Honduras has the craziest transportation you can imagine. They have what they call rapiditos, and they're basically 12 to 16 passenger vans that they gut out, and they stick as many little benches in there as they possibly can. And so if you need to go anywhere to a district meeting or somewhere far away, you have to get in these rapiditos, and you pay depends on how far you go, but 8 lempiras or something. It's really cheap. And you get in there, and they're the best opportunity for contacting or attracting or talking to people. But they drive so crazy. My first few weeks, I was holding on for my life. I just thought they thought it was a Disneyland ride or something because they hit the curves so fast and they go so fast. And I sort of felt like they treat you like animals. Like they want your money so bad. And they're so desperate that if you're standing on the side of the road waiting for one and you put your finger up taxi or rapidito, they'll pull over, and 3 different ones will pull over, and they will grab you on one arm and grab you on the other and yank you trying to get you onto the right one, because their poverty is a huge issue there, and so they really want your business. So that's just something to be aware of. It happens. You just have to be assertive and pick the one you want. And they're really hot and they're really stuffy, but they're so good to talk to people. So just talk to the people around you. Other than that, a couple areas, some of the more rural areas, have what we call a moto taxi, and they're these tiny little car things that have 2 wheels on the back and 1 wheel on the front. And everywhere I went, you pay 10 lempiras, so it's 50 cents to get on a ride, and they'll just take you wherever you tell them. And those are really fun too. Those are way fun. And in one area, they have taxis in San Pedro, but they're really expensive. So unless you're the nurse's companion or with the nurse, you probably want to avoid those just because you're going to drain your budget. But if you're in Santa Rosa de Copan, the taxis there are 20 lempiras, so $1 a ride. And those, we tried to avoid using them when we could, but it was good to take them, especially because it's easier to share in a taxi because it's more quiet. And they're really great. It's just hard too because taxi drivers work from 4 in the morning till midnight. So they have a hard time getting to church, but they're wonderful people and they're so fun to talk to. As for the weather in Honduras, the weather is so hot. You will get used to it. Don't worry, but it is so hot. You will sunburn the first few days. I sunscreened for the first while and then I just got used to it. And I burned my whole life, but the Lord blessed me and let me get tan a little bit. And so you get used to being outside all day and you don't burn as bad. It is really, really, really hot. But when December, January comes, you will be, it will be a little bit colder. It'll be at the lowest in the 70s, and that will feel really cold to you because you'll be so used to being in 110 degrees all the time. And it's nice to have a little jacket too, or elders their suit coat, because the church buildings, the ones that have air conditioning, which most of them don't, but a few of them do, like the Benque, the big stick center, the air conditioning freezes you. You feel so cold with air conditioning because you're not used to it. So that's something about the weather. Another thing is that there are crazy tropical rainstorms. So every single area I got stuck in the most insane pouring rain. You feel like you're in a hurricane or something. They're so fun. Those are my favorite days to be out and doing stuff because, number one, it is the best for attracting because people will let you into their house no matter what. If you are soaking wet and you look cold to them, they'll take you in no matter what. And it's awesome. We actually taught a lady and her family who were really receptive that way. And it was because they took us in because of the rain. So don't let the rain scare you. Stay out there. Something to be really aware of is the rain will soak through to your scriptures, so you want to make sure you have a good case for your scriptures. They sell them in the Guatemala MTC, and they're awesome. They're these cool leather bound. You can get your name engraved in them, and they draw designs of temples and Book of Mormon stories and stuff on them. They're really, really cool. So I would suggest getting those. I don't remember how much they were. It was like $10, $20 or something. Totally worth it. So the rain is crazy, so you'll want to have grocery bags on you too to put your stuff in so you don't get too wet. Well, you will get wet, but you want to protect your stuff from getting wet. So the rain just gets crazy. I had days where I'd go home and I'd wring out my clothes, and you're just soaking. And it's actually really fun. I walked in up to like 3 to 3.5 feet of water, so your legs are you just feel like you're walking in a river sometimes. It's so fun. So be aware for that. It is really super hot, so prepare, but it'll be awesome. Another thing about the really hot weather is that it brings mosquitoes. So mosquitoes, it's really good to use bug repellent. For the first while, you'll get bit a lot. I got bit so much, and I'm allergic too, so they'd swell up. But using the repellent is really helpful. And then for whatever reason, after the first while, you'll stop getting bit. It's the weirdest thing. But after 6 weeks of being bit like crazy, once they put me in different areas, it's like you eat enough of their food that the smell of your blood changes or something, because you get bit less. And I noticed if I eat a lot of candy or a lot of unhealthy food, I got bit a lot more. And I think it's because all the sugar makes your blood smell different to them. I know that sounds crazy, but eating healthier definitely helped me a lot. So that was something that was really great. Honduran food is so good. I love it and I miss it. The best food is a baleada. They are so good. I'm dying for one. When I came home from my mission, I hunted down people from Honduras, asked them for the recipe and where to buy the ingredients to make them, because they are so good, and I even dream about them sometimes. They are a big flour tortilla that they make by hand, and then they put refried beans and some cream. It's not like our cream. It's not like a whipped cream. It's like a sour cream but sweeter. And then this cheese that they sprinkle in it, and it is so good. Every missionary learns to love them. They're very fattening, but man, getting fat off a baleada is so worth it. They are so good. You can also get egg or avocado or chicken or different things in them if you want. I loved them sencilla or plain. They were really, really good. They also do, everything they eat is deep fried. The reason being that they don't have ovens, and if the few that do don't really know how to use them unless you're in a kind of a richer area. So they make tacos that I loved. They were my favorite thing when I first got there. And it looks like a taquito. Like it's just like a rolled up flute taco. And then they stuff it with chicken or whatever you want them to. Most of the time it's chicken. And then they deep fry those, and they're so good. There's also these little things called pastelitos, which sounds like little cakes in Spanish, but it's not a cake. It's they get like potatoes and rice and chicken and whatever meat they want, and then they wrap it up in a corn-based dough, and then they fry that, and it's so good too. The other thing that I love are the tajadas. So the tajadas are a green unripe banana. It's not a plantain, it's a banana. And they slice them into these cool shaped slices, and they deep fry them like a French fry almost. And then they put this white sauce on them. I don't even know what it is, but it's so good. It's almost like a watered down mayonnaise, which doesn't sound good, but it tastes so good. And so they put that all over these tajadas, and then they do fried chicken on top of it. It's so good. Every missionary gains weight from it, and it's just awesome. And the typical dish that you'll get will be beans, eggs, and a tortilla. They do rice. They don't really make pastas. They'll do spaghetti, but that's it. I personally didn't love the spaghetti, but a lot of the missionaries did. It just depends on your opinions. But the food was so good. The members are going to feed you a ton of food. So much food. They would give you plates like so big. You feel like they gave you a whole entire pot of the food. They're so generous, and they are so sweet. and you don't have to eat it all. I was really worried about offending them, and you definitely need to have tact. But most of the time, before even starting the meal, I would say, Hermana, I know I'm not going to be able to finish this all. It's a lot of food for me. It is so delicious. Could I take half of it to go? And they always said yes, and they were so sweet. So that's what I always suggested, taking it to go, because then you're not saying, I don't like it or I want less. You're just saying, can I take some of it for leftovers? It's so good, and I want to eat it tomorrow. I want it to last longer. And so they're really flattered by that. If there's something that is just so gross to you, you can't eat it. I had, for whatever reason, the avocado made me sick there. And so when they would offer that with things, I would just explain, oh, I'm allergic. And they were so kind, and they didn't mind. There are certain situations where they are very poor, and they've scraped together their money to feed you. So it is correct and the best thing to do to eat it. And you should always eat everything off your plate the best that you can. But they are very good. And if you have an area where there's elders and they feed you and the elders at the same time at their houses, you can make the elders finish your food for you. I did that all the time. The food is so good. They don't really drink water. They drink Coca-Cola and Pepsi. They probably drink more Pepsi than Coke. And it's really good. There's not any rules about not drinking it. You're fine to drink it. They do a lot of sodas, which they call frescos. So they drink a lot of frescos. They have these little stores on the side of the street called pulperias. And they're basically somebody out of their house has cut out a window, and there's bars there, and you go up to these bars windows and say, oh, I want a chips, or I want a cookie, or I want this. And then they'll just give it to you, and it's so cheap. Be careful, because a lot of missionaries just stop by them so frequently that they gain a lot of weight. But they are really helpful. Probably the weirdest thing that every missionary experiences is sopa de mondongo, which honestly I don't really know what it is exactly. I've been told it's cow butt, I've been told it's cow intestines, and I've been told it's cow stomach, so I don't really know which of the three it is. But it's the weirdest textured thing, and they put it in a soup always. It's kind of a barnacle substance. I don't know. It's really weird, and it's really difficult to eat off the bone. You have to use your hands. So when you're eating a soup with your hands, it feels kind of weird. And that's one of their luxuries for them. It's a more expensive meat, so you really do have to eat it if they make it for you. So that was something weird, but the taste actually isn't bad. It's just the texture that's kind of strange. You do eat crab. They make crab a lot. It's really good. I thought I didn't like seafood before my mission. That's wrong. I do like seafood now. I started my mission, I didn't even like beans. I hated them. And they make them so good in Honduras. I love beans now. So you really do adjust and get used to their foods. Their cheeses are really, really strong. It's really great food. You're in for a treat. But you do need to be careful, because the average weight gain is, I don't know how much, but it's crazy. I gained 25 pounds on my mission while I was there. And I was one of the skinnier sisters. The food there is very fattening because everything's fried. And everything has carbs, and it's all breads and tortillas. You eat so many tortillas. And so it's very, very fattening. Lots of soda. You're going to get home at night and you're going to be really hungry. I just recommend having snacks with you throughout the day, not eating once you get home. I was able to actually lose some of the weight that I had gained by exercising in the mornings. That's really hard to do. We should do it every single day, but for a sister missionary to be ready and exercised and having eaten breakfast by 8 o'clock is really hard. So we would go to bed early, since we were required to go home early, and we would wake up early. So we woke up at 6 or 5:50 every day to go running. So good. It's really hot and you'll sweat a ton, which is useful. And it's really, really good for you. I really recommend getting videos on a USB flash drive, exercise videos. They're so great. I don't remember the formatting. You have a little mini DVD player, a portable one, that's in your apartment so that you can show things to investigators. So you just put that in and do a workout video on it. That's what I did all the time. And it was really helpful. So that was great. Weight gain is a huge problem there. You have to be committed to exercising. The fruit is really cheap and it's super good, so you can get a lot of fruit and just make sure you wash it good. And that's something that can really help, but you're going to be so hungry from walking, and the people are going to feed you so much that the size of your stomach and the size of your appetite is just going to expand. And that's okay. It's not horrible. I worried so much about it and stressed a lot about it, and I regret that. I wish I would have just let it be as it was and then worry about getting back to being healthy when I came home. But at the same time, it is important to be healthy. I think the number one factor that goes into sister missionaries and elders gaining weight is eating late at night when you get home, because you're hungry and you just want a snack. And eating really late at night is never a good idea. So once I started trying to lose it and I made sure I snacked throughout the day, I had a granola bar or an apple, and I would just eat that all day long so that I wasn't hungry when I got home. I would go to bed. Even if I was a little hungry, I'd wake up not hungry at all, and then that's when I started losing a lot of the weight. So just be very careful about that. But it's not the end of the world. You're there to serve the Lord, and the people don't care. They will love you anyways. Okay, so learning the language was a struggle for me. It was really hard, and I got down on myself, and I was kind of a perfectionist, and I had this big burning testimony inside of me, and I wanted to share it, and I couldn't get the words to get it out right. And so it was a very frustrating experience for me at first, but I learned so much. The people are wonderful, and they will make a lot of comments. Oh, I didn't understand. It was always hard for them to turn to my companion. What did she just say? Or what did she mean to say? But that's okay. You learn. It takes time. In the MTC, they're going to really pump you up and get you excited about the gift of tongues, and they'll say, yeah, within 3 months, you'll be speaking perfect, fluent Spanish. That, for me, was not the case. It took me probably 6 months. But what I think really increased my ability to speak Spanish was having more faith in myself and making myself practice. Because I at first preferred to stay quiet. I tried to talk a lot when I first got there because I was so motivated. And then when they just didn't understand me, and it was so hard, I realized really how hard it was to get the language out of my mouth. I got a little bit more quiet and let my companion do the majority, and that was a mistake. The people will understand you even if it's not perfect. If you get some of the vocab words, and if you translate the Spanish wrong, or if you do the grammar tense in the wrong past tense, that's okay. It's really, they will love you, and they will help you, and they'll help you get through it. I had an experience where the sister training leaders were coming to do divisions or splits or whatever they call it with us, and I had to lead the lessons all day long, and I was terrified because I didn't remember how to get to those people's houses, and I didn't know the language, and I just felt so discouraged. And that day I was reading in my scriptures, and I read the story in the New Testament when Peter had the faith to walk on water, and so he walked on the water. And the moment he began to doubt, he drowned. But when he had faith, he could do it. And so I thought to myself, if Peter can walk on the water and has faith to do something that hard, there's no reason I couldn't have a day of speaking good Spanish with people understanding me. So I just said, no, it doesn't matter. I'm here. The Lord has called me here, and I'm going to speak it, and I'm going to have a good day. And I spoke great Spanish that whole day. People understood me. I understood the majority of what they were saying. The sister training leader was so kind to help me fill in the gaps, and it was a really great experience, and I learned that day that I can really speak it. But after that day, I sort of lost motivation again. I was really studying every single day, but I just had a hard time still. So then they took away my amazing Guatemalan trainer, and they sent me a girl from Mapleton, Utah, who I adore, and her Spanish was not perfect either at all. So we'd go, these two little white girls in this area that hadn't seen American sister missionaries in years, and we would go teach these lessons, and the people just didn't totally understand us, and so we had to figure it out so fast. So by taking away my clutch of using my companion for everything, they just sent me another companion who wasn't perfect. And it was so good for me. And she really was great and taught me that I can speak Spanish and that I could do it and that I just wasn't giving myself the credit I needed to. And she changed my world. She had come at a time where I really was having a hard time adjusting, and so I was really grateful for her to just show me how when you work your butt off as hard as you possibly can, and you have faith and you speak and you do those things, miracles happen, and you learn to really enjoy and love it. So the language, just do language study. It's kind of hard because when I left in November of 2016, the rules were still, you do language study at 1 o'clock every day. But if a member feeds you a lunch, they're never punctual, and so you start eating by 12:45, and so the language study doesn't really happen. You need to make it happen, whether it be at night, whether it be during the day, whether it be taking flashcards around with you. You really need to learn the language and study it. People would always tell me, your grammar is so much, once I got good at Spanish, people would just tell me, your grammar is so much better than other American missionaries that I've met. And it was because I studied those books and I did all the little homework assignments out of them, and it helped me so much. And people will ask you, can you write Spanish and read it too? And I said, yep, that's how I learned, was reading and writing it out of a book. So the book they'll give you in the MTC is so helpful. It's golden. So just make sure you really use that, and that will help you a ton. And just be so optimistic and so faithful, and don't get yourself down, and you'll learn it in no time, and you'll be thinking, wow, I just understood everything, and wow, they just understood me. And it is a great feeling. Okay, so just one of my favorite experiences. I had so many, but I think the most satisfying. Okay, I'm trying to decide which one. There was a family in my last area in San Pedro Sula, and they lived 30 seconds from the church. And I was walking with my cute companion from Guatemala one day, and we saw this man sitting on the sidewalk talking with some neighbors. So we decided to go sit down on the sidewalk with him and just kind of join in the conversation, kind of butted in and invited ourselves. And we just started talking to him, what he was interested in. Well, he loved soccer, and he had these cute kids. We just felt prompted to pull out the family proclamation to the world. And we did. And we were showing him about it, and how something that really grabs their attention, I felt like, was just saying, Satan is working on our families, and the families are disintegrating, and we need to keep those families strong. And the gospel helps us to do that, and we can be with our families for eternity. My favorite thing to teach people were the saving ordinances. People have no idea what an endowment or initiatory or anything is, and it blows their mind, and it gets them in a mindset of getting past baptism. So I loved teaching that lesson. But so we sat down with him, and he really didn't want to let us back. He was like, no, I'm just busy, and I don't want you guys, I don't know. Why don't you just come by another day? And we would something in us just made us beg him, and we would not take no for an answer. We're like, please, we will clean your house. We'll do anything. Just let us come back. We want to meet your family, and we want to teach you about how your family can be even more happy. Finally, he said yes. And we show up a few days later, and there he is with his wife and his beautiful 3 little children, all sitting lined up on a couch ready for us to teach. And we taught them the plan of salvation. And we first read through the family proclamation to the world. And that was absolutely the Spirit that guided us to do that, because this man loved his family. And they allowed us to come back, and we taught this perfect little family, and they began to glow, and it took time. They did not understand the restoration of the gospel at all. We had to teach that lesson like 5 times. And that's not an exaggeration, 5 times, because they couldn't grasp the concept that there is one true church of Jesus Christ that has been restored. They were in the mindset of every church is good and correct and true. And they had another church that they were very faithful in, and it took them a long time to wean their children away from that church, because their best friends all went to that church as well. And it took time, and we got them to go to church. And it was beautiful to see. We'd start praying on their knees, and the dad would never join us. He never wanted to join us, and we would beg him to pray. Beg him, and he just didn't want to. He was stubborn about it. If he did pray, it was 2 words, and he said amen. And as we taught and as the progression went on, he would be the one to say, Hermanas, let's get on our knees and say a prayer. I'll say it. And it was just this huge transformation in him to see how the Spirit, through the Book of Mormon, really took the pride out of his heart and humbled him to do something that was scary for him, to pray in front of people. And what really changed that family was the Book of Mormon. We started doing every single day. We'd go through our favorite scriptures. We'd read a story with them. We would teach them every lesson using just the Book of Mormon. And they began to love it. We'd leave them little homework assignments, assign each of them a certain scripture. We'd write the book and the verse and the page it was on and have them read that. And we'd come back and talk about it. And that's really what changed their minds. And they had to get married, and the marriage process is a really long, lengthy, expensive process, and they didn't have money for it. And it took some time, and I finished my mission, but last month on my birthday of all days, that beautiful little family of 5 were baptized and confirmed. And it was just, I was so emotional and so grateful that after working so hard, I found that one little perfect family. And I wanted to find families, my home mission, and I found a few, but I wanted a complete family with a mom and a dad and kids. And the Lord blessed me with that at the very end of my mission. And I know that those miracles can happen to you too, and that the Lord can change people's hearts, that the Book of Mormon is so powerful. And even the people who you think are most likely to accept the gospel will. For packing and for sister missionary advice, my first piece of advice is there are skirts that have like a built-in slip with a plasticky synthetic material inside. Don't buy those. They are so hot. Every skirt I had a built-in slip. You will not wear a slip. It will tell you in your packet to buy them. Unless you're wearing a white skirt that needs it, you're not going to wear them. They're so hot. They just make sweat drip down your legs. Gross, I know. Sorry for painting that picture for you. So I got to my mission. It was so hot. It was June. It was 110 degrees with like 110% humidity, if that's even possible. It was so hot. The gum I had melted. The gum melts. Any sugary, like Starbursts or anything like that melts. They eat like just hard candies because everything melts. So it's really hot. I took a pair of scissors and I cut out my slips. I made sure the fabric was opaque enough to not see through it, but it was so hot. So you want the coolest thing you possibly can. So 1 layer of a skirt, no more, unless it's a white skirt. Secondly, I had like the same t-shirt in every color, and then like black and white and neutral skirts that could go with any color, which I thought was a great idea, but the shirts I had were more form-fitting. They were kind of tighter, and by the time 10 or 11 o'clock hit, I had sweat down to my belly button. I know that's so gross, but you're going to sweat so much. So you really need to have looser shirts, which is the style now anyways, so that's good news. Pencil skirts are kind of hard just because of walking. You're going to have times where you're going to have to walk super fast, and your walking ability is limited in a pencil skirt. You can still take some for like a zone meeting or different meetings you have, or Sundays when you go to church in the morning. They're totally fine. Just make sure they're not like a really tight fitting one. Please make sure your skirts are below your knee as well. There were a lot of sister missionaries who struggled with that because it's harder to find longer skirts in countries like that, but you need to have them a little bit longer. Shoes. I could not wear closed-toed shoes. I know that was like the rule or what it said in the handbook. I got permission from my mission president's wife to wear sandals because I just always hate it when my feet are hot, but it's so hot there and it makes your feet sweat and smelly, and it can get funguses with them closed-toed. So I wear sandals. I had a pair of Kings that I really liked, but my very favorite shoes were Tevas. They were so ugly that I almost didn't buy them. And when I was almost to the cash register at the store before I left on my mission, I went back and got them and purchased them. Best decision of my life. So comfortable. They lasted the whole time. I didn't need to repair them. They were just in such good condition. So they, by far the best shoe. I know other sister missionaries like chacos, but those kind of rubbed my toes weird, so I didn't love them. What else? So loose clothes. You might want one sweater just for when you go to air-conditioned buildings because you'll freeze yourself. It'll feel awesome at first, and then your sweat gets cold on you, and you get really cold. You will want... Okay, so the suitcase situation, I really regretted what I did. If you're looking at buying luggage, I had a really big one on 4 wheels, and then I had a set with a medium size and a small size. So I had a large, medium, and small. Carrying around 3 suitcases for changes or transfers is so hard, and it's annoying, and I thought I could maybe bungee cord my smallest one to the top one. It didn't work. So what I recommend is getting the jumbo really big ones and 2 of them rather than anything else. And having 4 wheels makes a big difference too, but just having 2 really big ones will be really, really helpful. I'm pretty sure you can go into the country with as much weight as you want. It's just when you leave that you have to leave a lot of stuff and have a light weight. I really recommend just by the time you're done with your mission, you're going to hate every skirt and every shirt and every dress that you have. You'll be so bored of them, and they'll be old, and there's so many people you know and investigators that need skirts that you can give them to. So when I came home, I left absolutely everything besides one favorite skirt that I went home in and souvenirs. That's all I had, and totally worth it. Having a dress is nice. I always loved having a dress just to feel a little fancier on some days because you do feel I don't know how to put it, a little rag doll. You never feel like you're ready or put together for the day because you sweat so much. And so having a dress for Sundays was really nice. I recommend getting a dress too. Maybe 2 or 3 dresses. Most sister missionaries in our mission don't wear makeup. I always did. I was just raised to wear it and to look our best. And so I think it's actually important to wear makeup because it shows you're a representative of the Lord, and you're representing him, and you want to look presentable to these people and look like you actually put effort into what you did in the morning. It takes a little bit of time, and it's kind of annoying, but I think it's worth it. Any foundation will just sweat off. That's not even worth it. Powder, I used to be self-conscious of my oily skin, and now you just have to get over it because there's nothing you can do. There's no foundation good enough to stay on your face. But for eye makeup, I always had eyeshadow, eyeliner, mascara, and I don't regret that at all. Actually, every single companion I had started not wearing makeup, and then by the time they were done with me, or done being my companion, they were wearing makeup every day, and they just felt better about themselves and felt a little more presentable. So I actually think it's a really good, important thing. You will do ponytails or buns every single day because it is so hot. And even a ponytail was too hot for me because it spreads out and touches your sweaty neck and gets stuck to you. And so I would do either braids or like a ponytail and then a braid so that it wouldn't stick to me, or a bun. Everything else was just too hot. I also lost a lot of hair. My hair got so thin. It probably went down to a third of what it was. My braid started super big, and then it got super, super tiny by the time I was gone. And it's okay, but I would take hair vitamins with you and have a stock for your whole mission and take them every day to see if that helps. It probably won't because the diet is so unhealthy and the water is so dirty that you shower in. I know that's gross, but you actually tie, in a lot of houses, you tie a rag to the top of the shower, which isn't a shower head, it's a pipe, and it catches all the dirt in the rag, and then the water comes through. So because of that, you might lose a lot of hair, so really take good care of it. And it broke a lot too. I had to cut off a lot of hair when I came home to kind of catch up to where the breakage was. Another thing too is haircuts there. Don't get your hair cut. Every sister missionary I talked to told them that they only wanted los puntos, just split ends. They tell them this much, they cut this much every time. You will regret it. And if you are blonde, don't even trust them. Don't let them get anywhere near your head with a pair of scissors. I just let my hair grow, and it was past my belly button when I came home. And I cut off 8 inches, and then I just cut off more. But you just let it grow, because you can't trust anyone. I had one trim in the middle, and I let an American sister just trim it for me, because I just didn't trust anyone. So yeah, I think being a sister missionary there, you'll get a lot of attention if you're North American. But it's a wonderful place, and the sisters are well taken care of, well treated. There's not very many sister missionaries in the mission. They kind of go through waves of not sending any North Americans, and then they send a couple, and then they don't send any. When I left, there were only 2 North Americans for the majority of my mission, and then there were more afterwards. So, I mean, that would be my packing advice, and my sister missionary advice is just cool sandals, lots of bug spray, and you're going to love it. It's so much fun. So, towards the end of my mission, they changed it to where sister missionaries are supposed to wear pants when proselyting. And I was, at the time, a sister training leader, so we went shopping with our mission president's wife at the mall, and we purchased nice dress pants, and we had to go to all the zone conferences and model them for everybody. And we felt very awkward, and having everyone kind of drop their jaws like, a sister missionary is not in a skirt. It was kind of, I wouldn't say traumatizing, but it was just a good experience, I guess. But so you need to have like 2 pairs of pants that'll say in your packet. That is actually a really good thing. President Bush is awesome. He does not force you to wear them, but they require that you have them, because the church has recommended that sisters have these pants to protect their legs from really what they're worried about is Zika and chikungunya. And so it's good to have them. I actually wore them sometimes, and I actually liked them. They were a little bit hotter, but at the same time, it was really nice for certain rainy days. So it was really weird getting used to. And we didn't do it every single day, but we did do it on days that we'd be out tracting all day, and we didn't really have as many lessons. And we were in the street all day, we'd really try to wear the pants. So wear them. They need to be like brown or gray or black or a neutral color, no bright colors. When I went shopping with Sister Bush for the pants, they were actually more tapered. I wouldn't have called them like skinny jeans, but there you just could not find any like wide-legged pants at all. So if you're having a hard time finding like straight wide pants, you're probably okay to get some that are a little bit more fitting, but we don't want really tight pants. But that was kind of an adventure. Make sure you have them. Certain areas, there won't be so many mosquitoes. If like you're in the cold part, during the cold part of the year, you might not need to wear them. But during the really hot tropical rural parts, it's worth it. I struggled with mosquito bites. My feet were so bitten. I had like 25 mosquito bites on the bottoms of my feet. And I had a really hard time walking, and my feet swelled, and my ankles were so swollen that my Velcro sandals didn't fit me, and I had to go purchase a new pair of shoes. That's not normal. That's just me. I'm really, really allergic. But if I would have been able to wear pants during those times, that would have helped me so much. So it's really worth it. Also, I wouldn't worry too much about getting a mosquito-borne disease. I have seen sisters get chikungunya. But the really scary one is Zika, because, well, it's not that scary. I was just told that if you have Zika and then get pregnant, your child could have birth defects. But if you have it and then get rid of it and years later have a baby, you'll be fine. It's just if you're pregnant while having Zika, which as a sister missionary, you won't have that problem. But Zika, only elders got it. I was the nurse's companion for a while, and it was like elder after elder who got sick with that or parasites. Sisters stay healthier. We're just smarter to put the bug spray on, honestly. So even though the elders wore the pants, they still got this mosquito-borne diseases, and the sisters stayed better. But it is nice to have it for reasons. So anyways, just get some pants and make sure they have a little room to grow because you may gain some weight and they're really hard to find in Honduras. I loved being a missionary. It was by far the best experience that I've had. I'm home and married now. That's great too, but I miss my mission every single day. And it was the most special time of my life. What I really realized, and I realize this more and more every day as I think about those sweet people, is that you as a missionary, I as a missionary, I was literally stepping into the Savior's place. Not that he's replaceable, of course, but I was ministering to his children exactly as he would have done when he was there. When I got set apart, my stake president blessed me and told me that when people met me, it would be the closest experience they'd ever have to meeting Jesus Christ himself in person. And that really touched me, and it really affected me a lot. And I tried to think every day, I'm going to be obedient so I can be Christ-like. And you're going to have the most tender experiences. When I see the videos of Christ and him ministering to the sick and these little small frail bodies, you do that. You go into these little shacks and they have a mattress on the floor, on a dirt floor, and you sit there on the bed with a sick, ailing person and you just love them and you minister to them just as Jesus Christ would when you were there, when he was on the earth. If he were there, he would be doing exactly what we were doing. We're the Lord's angels walking around and blessing people's lives. It is surreal. It is so spiritual every day. I think I was so used to being on such a spiritual high that I didn't recognize it. And now that I'm home and adjusted to normal life, I really miss how spiritual it was and how great it was. Another piece of advice, I always beat up on myself for not being perfect. I wanted to be a perfectly obedient missionary, and I'd fall short. And I'd catch myself breaking a rule, and then I'd stop and realize, I'm breaking a rule, and then I'd try to fix it and do better. But I'd always just beat up on myself. I wanted to be like Alma and Amulek, baptizing so many. And it's hard, and it's hard work. And I think it's great to strive for perfect obedience, but don't focus so much on it that you become one of the robot missionaries that judge every other missionary, but just love every other missionary. When I went home and I finished my mission, the overall sense I had was I was not a perfect missionary, and maybe I wasn't even as perfectly obedient as I wanted to be. But I was perfect at trying, and I was perfect at trying to be obedient and trying to do better, and I think that's what matters. You're going to hear so much in the MTC and on your mission about perfect obedience, and it's hard. It's really hard. It's not as easy as it might seem, especially when you're a great missionary and you're tracting and you have so many lessons that you can't fit them all into one day. You're going from house to house to house to house, and you're just running. Getting home on time is the hardest rule. And so when you get home 20 minutes late, you just broke a rule, and that wasn't perfect obedience, but it's okay because the Lord understands. And as long as you really strive for that, that's what really matters. Another thing about homesickness, at first it's a little bit hard, but you adjust and you get to the point where you don't think about your family at all. You just forget about them. And I know that sounds sad. And maybe I'd remember a memory here or there, but I felt no homesickness at all. And I'd go a whole week and think, it's like already time to write my family today. I don't even know what to write them, or I don't remember what they wrote me last week. Because you get so caught up in the work. And really that's how it should be. It's still great to love your family, but that really isn't something you should be too concerned about. There were a lot of sister missionaries too who would go home early. A lot of times you would see a group of 5 to 6 sister missionaries coming in. Now it's more like 2 each time, and then of that group, 2 will go home after the end of 18 months. So the other ones all went home sporadically throughout, and sometimes it was because of sickness, and sometimes it was because of anxiety or depression or not handling it well. Sometimes it's for personal family problems. I just really encourage you to stick out the whole time and do whatever you can to keep you there, but still be open to the Lord's inspiration. And if the time does come that you do need to go home early, just trust the Lord and know that you did not fail him and that you did your very, very best. But it's going to be just as hard as everybody tells you it's going to be. You get motivated, and it's just as great as everyone tells you it's going to be too. It has both. There has to be adversity in all things. So just stay strong, keep through it, pray a lot. Prayer helps so much. And reading the Book of Mormon. If I could redo my mission, I really would focus way more on the Book of Mormon. And I did a good job at it, don't get me wrong, but it's so powerful. The only thing that will keep a member or a convert active is reading it and having friends in the Word. But I know a lot of missionaries who want to use verses out of the Bible, so that people really believe that Mormons use the Bible, because some people don't think that. But I think it's so important to use the Book of Mormon, because you're starting to read them all these scriptures, and it's starting to resonate with them, and they're starting to feel the Spirit, and then they think, yeah, this Mormon book is actually good, and it actually helps the Bible. And they start to have a testimony of it, and once they do have the testimony of the Book of Mormon, they now have a testimony of Joseph Smith. And now that they have that testimony, they know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is Christ's church upon this earth, that it is the right one. It is the exact one, all because the Book of Mormon was true. So don't focus on the Bible so much. I used scriptures from there for family nights, or in the first lesson, the restoration, we used scriptures from the Bible before introducing the Book of Mormon. And that was great too. But really focus on the Book of Mormon a ton. Being a missionary is the best experience. I miss it every day. I'm saving up money to go back and see a little family of 5 sealed in the Tegucigalpa Temple next year, because I just miss and love those people. It was the best time of my life. You are going to love being a missionary. You're going to the best place with the best people, and everything about the experience is what makes it. The weather, the hotness, that's what you're going to look back and love and remember that you went through that. The mosquito bites, the everything. Every trial about it is what you're going to end up loving and remembering. So just enjoy it while you're there.
So I was in the Mexico MTC in October and a little bit of November, and it was starting to get really cold in Mexico, and I hate the cold. I'm such a baby about it. And so I was really excited to go to Honduras because it's really tropical, and I got there and it was like 90 degrees and it was wonderful. So I arrived, and I just remember because in Honduras they kind of like spiral around to get down to the airport. I'm not sure why, but it's just so beautiful looking over the whole country. And I just remember looking down and seeing tons of palm trees and tons of green, and it's right next to the ocean. And it's a very tropical, beautiful place. And when I arrived, the mission president came and picked us up, and I loved my mission president. He's ending in June, but he was absolutely amazing. Him and his wife were there, and I was just so excited, and I felt so much happiness when I first arrived, and I definitely had a confirmation that that was exactly where I was supposed to be and where I was supposed to be serving the Lord. The church started in Honduras probably, I want to say like 50 years ago, around that time. It started in Tegucigalpa, that's where the first missionaries went. There's actually a sister in my mission that her mom had served in Honduras, and it was just the Tegucigalpa mission, so it was the entire mission. And I actually met someone else who also said that he served in Honduras. He was older, but he said back then it was like Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, so it was just huge. So since then, just in 50 years, it's grown quite a bit. In Honduras alone, there's 4 missions now. And the nearest temple is in Tegucigalpa, which is the capital. So my mission, and when I got there, they had just split the mission San Pedro Sula, the west and the east. So we had about half of San Pedro Sula, and then we went to the west, to the coast, kind of to the coast of Guatemala and up. So we covered like Copan, Santa Barbara, Puerto Cortez. So we just took that strip along the side on the west. So it was a good mixture of, we had the ruins there, which everybody wants to go to. You had some beach. And then there's like a little bit of mountainous area as well. So I feel like it was the best mission because we had the best of everything. When I first got there, there were probably like half and half of like North American sisters and Latina sisters. By the time I was ending, there were definitely a lot more Latina sisters. I'm not sure why that is, but that's kind of what was happening. I know there was one North American sister that came a transfer after me, and then after that we didn't get another North American sister for probably 10 or 11 months. And the elders wise, I think they had, I want to say about half and half Latino, half from North America. We had, a bunch from Central America, from El Salvador, Guatemala. I had 2 companions from Guatemala, and then I had probably 3 companions from North America, and then like 4 Latina companions. So it was a good variety, and you'll learn to love everybody because everybody brings kind of a different outlook on the mission, a different viewpoint, and it's really fun to get to know different people from different countries and see what they're like and see what their country's like, and they'll make you food sometimes, which is extra fun because then you get to experience food from their country and they'll talk to you about where they're from. So I really enjoyed it. I started my mission in Santa Rosa de Copan. That's about 2 hours away from the ruins. In there, I was in a little branch of about probably 100 people on a good day, 60 people on a bad day. And it was great. That area is working to become a stake. They're having progress little by little, and it's an amazing area. So I actually had a weird thing. So I started out in Santa Rosa. I was only there for 1 transfer, and then I got switched out. Then I went to my second area, Campana, which is by the beach, and it's a really beautiful area. And I love the area there. That was a ward. It was quite a bit bigger. And then after that, I actually asked my mission president if I could go back to Santa Rosa because I had only had 1 transfer there. And it was great because he let me. I think I was the only one ever who got to go back to an area. So I went back to Santa Rosa for 3 more transfers. And there I saw so much growth, and it was amazing. And then after that, I went to El Bosque, which was also a branch. And that was it was Fezitran Stake, but it was pretty close to San Pedro Sula. And that was a little branch. There was about 50 members there. So that was really fun, just being in a smaller area because you really get to know everybody. And you know everyone really well, which was really nice as well. And then after that, I went to my final area, Los Castaños, which was also in San Pedro Sula. And I was there for 2 transfers. And that was really the city area. That's kind of, that it's probably a little bit more dangerous because it's the city. Being a missionary, though, you're really protected. And I never saw anything, or I never even felt fearful, which was such a blessing, I think. What people will call them actually is catrachos. So like a man's a catracho and a lady's a catracha. And they're amazing. I love the people there. I think they're some of the warmest, kindest people that you'll ever meet. When I first got my call, of course you Google the city and the place, and I looked it up, San Pedro Sula, Honduras. And the first thing that comes up is most dangerous city in the world or murder capital of the world. So it's kind of frightening when you first see that. But I got there and people are so kind and they are so loving and so warm. And I think that that's something that I really miss about that culture is just the warmth that you feel as soon as you walk into somebody's house. And I feel like they're everybody there, almost everybody believes in God, and they're very devoted to him. And I think and a lot of people have a lot of faith because they live in such humble circumstances. So they really do rely upon God to help them get day to day and to provide them with food every day. And I have so much love for them because they, when I first got there and I barely spoke any Spanish and I was just this lost white girl. They were so kind, and so many people let us into their homes to teach them. And, the members just took us in, and I absolutely love the people there. And, you know, you always hear all these scary stories, but really that's not the people. There are a few people that maybe make bad decisions, but overall the culture is an amazing culture that is definitely loving and kind. So in Honduras, you definitely eat baleadas every day, all day. So baleadas, so they make their tortillas by hand there, and they're delicious. They make flour tortillas. So if you're along the coast, if you're in San Pedro Sula or Puerto Cortes or like Campana, they mainly make flour tortillas, and they make it by hand. And so you get to learn how to do that. As long as you ask, they'll teach you. So baleadas is a flour tortilla, and then with like red beans. So they always eat red beans there. They put red beans in there, and then they put some crema, which is like a cream. It's like the texture is like sour cream, but it doesn't really taste like sour cream. It's sweeter. And with some cheese, and you can ask to put eggs in it or avocado. But the basic one, sencilla, is just like a tortilla with red beans and cheese and a little bit of cream. So you eat that all the time. Their typical food is definitely, you know, a little bit of meat, eggs, red beans always, like cream, and like either flour tortillas or wheat tortillas. If you're in, corn tortillas, not wheat tortillas. If you're in like more of the countryside, in the rural areas, like out by Copan or Santa Barbara, you'll definitely eat more of the corn tortillas. And a lot of times they'll grind their own corn, so it's extra delicious. But the food was really good. Also, one of my favorite foods was sopa de caracol. It's not just a song. Everybody thinks it's just a song, but in Honduras it's actually food. And I guess translated it's snail soup, but it's delicious. It's basically a bunch of different seafood in a soup, and that was my favorite food by far. And people would always make it for me when they found out it was my favorite, so it made me happy. Also, since it's along the coast, the seafood there is delicious. I love seafood, so I'd always, whenever I was close to the beach or anything, I'd always ask for like pescado frito, which is basically just fish that you eat. On my mission though, we weren't allowed to eat a lot of the vegetables. We weren't allowed to eat like the lettuce or the like strawberries or blueberries, and that's because it needs a lot of water to grow, and it's grown in the dirt, and the water there is pretty dirty. And so if you drink the water or like even eat vegetables that I guess have grown with that water, it'll make you sick and you can get parasites. So that kind of stung, not eating vegetables, but the fruit is delicious, so it's okay. So it's actually really funny. In Honduras, they mainly talk in usted or en vos, which is more common in like Argentina as well, like vos, e vos. And also like, it's really funny if you hear the buses or anything, instead of saying like San Pedro Sula, they'd be like Han Pedro Hula. So they kind of like mix up they don't really say their S's very well. And so it is a little bit different. It'll take you a little bit to get used to, but it's cool. Like when I got home, I definitely had a catracho accent of Spanish because, you know, they cut off their words a little bit differently, and they'll say things a little bit different, but it's still really cool and pretty. I think that we should also never be afraid to make sacrifices. One of my favorite was La Hermana Rafaela. So we had taught this family, La Familia Hueso, in my second area in Campana, and it was a family who had 3 kids, and well, they had 4 kids, but only 3 of them got baptized because the other one was older. The whole family got baptized, and then, you know, they were one of my favorite examples because immediately after they got baptized, they were sharing the gospel with like their whole family, which is amazing, like their extended family as well. And then, but we went to meet La Hermana Rafaela, which I think was the wife's like aunt. I don't know, the familiar terms are a little bit different. Like you call everybody your primo, like your cousin, even though they're not. But anyways, I think it was her aunt. But to get to her, it was kind of a long way. Like it was kind of hard to get there because she lived at like the very edge of our area, but on top of a mountain. So we would have to wake up early in the morning. So like we said, like I said, Honduras gets way hot. And this was in like March, which is almost March and April and May are like some of their hottest times. So this was like in March. So we would wake up at 6 a.m. just so that we could leave and we do our studies later on. But we get up at 6 a.m. and then we would take a bus, about a 10-15 minute bus, the end of our area. And then we would either have to wait for this truck that would leave every 3 hours. And so on my mission, you weren't allowed to ride in like the back of a truck, which is very common there. Everybody just like hops in the back of a truck. You had to ride inside of it because I think some missionaries had died in Guatemala beforehand. So we were required to be inside the truck. So we had to make sure that we were the first ones there to like beat all the old ladies out of the front seat, which we felt horrible about. But what are you gonna do? Anyway, and then it was like me, and then my companion was like on top of me, or like I was on top of my companion because it was only like a 2-seat truck. And then, we would take this like 20-minute truck ride up the mountain, and then we would hike in like 20 minutes, like literally inside of a mountain. And sometimes we would miss the truck, so we'd have to hike up the whole mountain, which would take like an hour and a half, and it was like sweltering. That's why we'd leave at 6 a.m. because at 8 a.m. it's only 80 degrees instead of 100. So anyways, we'd always get to the top eventually somehow. And we would teach La Hermana Rafaela. And she was the most amazing woman. She was probably, 80 years old, but she had so much faith. And she, as soon as we got there, she was just like, I see the sacrifice that you guys made, and I feel like this is right, and I'm ready to be baptized. Almost immediately, as soon as we got there. And I feel like that was just such a testimony to me that when we sacrifice, like others see that, and God blesses us for those sacrifices. And she, she would come down from the mountain every Sunday, and it's quite a trek. But it was beautiful up there. But we taught her the lessons, and I remember sometimes, like, I feel like because she was older, like, sometimes she wouldn't even understand us, but she just, like, had so much faith that it almost made up for it. And I think slowly by slowly she learned. And I remember her baptism was the Sunday right before I left the area. And it was the most amazing experience to see this woman step into the waters of baptism. And she said that she had never been baptized before because she never wanted to in any other church. She was just such an example to me of sacrifice. And I think that you should, on the mission, something that I learned like halfway through is that there's this amazing talk by President Monson that's called See Others as They May Become. And he talks about how we should always see people, even if they're smoking or, if they're on the side of the street drunk, like we should always see them as they can become. And I think that's one of the most important lessons that I learned on my mission. And I think that you should never like look at someone and be like, oh no, we could never teach them. But look at everyone as if they were in their baptismal clothing, getting baptized, ready to, accept those ordinances. Because I think that whether it's in this life or the next life, I have a strong testimony that almost everyone will accept it, because why wouldn't you want to receive those blessings and to see others as they may become? And even if you're teaching, like a 14-year-old rowdy boy, which I taught plenty of, or, like a 16-year-old crazy girl, or, like a 30-year-old mom who is just on edge all the time, like each of them are children of God, and you should always see them how they can become and not how they are. And I think as I realized that, it changed my entire perspective on my mission, because it was no longer about all the challenges that they had to overcome. It was more about, of course, they can do it. They're a child of God, and they will do it. And you just have so much more faith in people. I think one thing that I also wish I would have known before is that when you go out to your mission, I think sometimes you think like it'll be scary and you'll be all by yourself, and you are losing a lot of your connections. Like you're losing your parents, you're losing your best friends, you're losing your family. But the thing is that once you get to your mission, you have so many people that are there to help you. And so you shouldn't be afraid. Like as soon as you get to your mission, you immediately have your mission president and his wife. And they're always amazing. Like every person I've ever talked to, like always loves their mission president. And I think one of the key reasons that we are sent to the missions we are sent to is for the mission president. To either to learn from him and to grow from him. So immediately as soon as you get there, you have the mission president and the wife. And then after that, like as soon as you get there, you'll have your companion who will be there to help you. And of course, there's always sometimes tensions and hard times in a companionship. But I think something that's important to remember is that you're there to love your companion and you're not there to fight with them. And that it's more important to have peace than to be right, especially if it's something small about maybe like a number or if it's just something small, just like don't worry about it, just let it go. It's better to have peace in the companionship than to have problems. Also, so you have your mission president and his wife, you have your other companions, and then you always have your district leader and your zone leaders, and they're always there to help you. And you have sister training leaders, and if you ever call anybody or need something, like they're immediately there to help you. And I think going out, I felt like that. I felt like I was alone and like I didn't have anybody around me, but immediately you do. Immediately you have so many people. And I would just say, like, throw yourself in there and get to know everybody, because those will become some of your best friends. One of my zone leaders is still one of my best friends, and I still talk to him all the time. And, my last companion, and there's also a reason why you're put with every single one of your companions, no matter who they are. And I know, like, my last companion and I, we talk all the time, and she's from the Dominican Republic. And I think that I'm so grateful for those connections that I have. And especially with my last companion, when we were together, we just both felt so strongly that we were meant to be together and that we had known each other in the premortal life. And, you're put in that mission for a reason, and you're giving the companions you're given for a reason. And I believe that it was all done premortally. Some things could be changed a little bit here, but really, like, God has perfect knowledge, and he knew what we needed to learn here, and he knows what we can do here. And even if you end up switching a mission or anything like that, he still knew that would happen, and he still has things that he wants you to learn and to accomplish. I think something else I wish I would have known is that like the most important convert is yourself. And I think as I've come home, I've seen so many people that I love dearly just fall away from the church and fall away from the things that they know. And I just wish that they, could feel what I felt on the mission and feel the things that I felt. And I think that sometimes we think that testimony comes from all these different things, but really it just comes from your heart and what you feel. And on your mission, you'll have so many amazing feelings and amazing experiences where you teach someone and you watch them learn and grow. And just remember, as you're learning and watching them grow, that's exactly how God is viewing you. And that you should continue your progress, and that sometimes you'll have doubts and obstacles, and sometimes, we all have challenges in this life. But as long as you keep reading your scriptures and praying and going to the temple and going to church, like, God will help you, and you'll keep feeling peace. It's when you start turning away from those things that's when problems start to happen, and that's when Satan has more influence over you. I think that so many people on the mission are taking so many leaps of faith, because first of all, they're letting you in their house to teach complete strangers. And then, they're fulfilling these commitments in, they're reading a book or pamphlets that they've never seen before, but they're taking those leaps of faith, and then they're going to church. And then, they accept the invitation to be baptized. And then, hopefully eventually they go to the temple. And they're taking so many leaps of faith. And of course, we in our own lives should do the same. And I think our investigators are some of our best examples, because if they're being obedient and doing what they're supposed to be doing, they see the blessings. And it's the same with us as missionaries. If we're being obedient, just like them, to the rules, then we'll also receive all of those blessings from God. If you're going to Honduras and you're a sister, first things first, like, you can basically throw out your makeup because it is so hot and humid there that you will literally just like sweat it all off. You can bring a little bit, but really it's like, I didn't wear makeup almost my whole mission, and it's totally fine. Like, it's not, I know, like, in the missionary handbook, there's like all these beautiful sister missionaries that look so great with their hair done and they look lovely, but that's just not reality there. It is hot and sweaty, and you'll be walking in 110-degree weather, and it will be humid, and it's okay. Like, you don't have to look beautiful. And also, like, hair-wise, literally my hair's in a ponytail almost every day because it's so hot and humid that you don't really want your hair touching your skin that often. Also, for clothes-wise, you want things that are really cool and things that won't be too hot. Maybe take one cardigan, because in December, once you've been there a few months, you feel like it's cold, even though it's not really that cold, you feel it. So I'd probably take like 1 or 2 jackets, but other than that, just keep all your clothes like really light and simple. I actually took like 5 shirts for exercising, like of that like exercise material, and those became my favorite proselyting shirts because they're the best in the hot and the humid. And then just like basic skirts is completely fine. Like they don't have any problem with that. You can take like 1 or 2 or 3 nice dresses for maybe, you know, when you have like a zone conference or a missionary conference, but your every day-to-day proselyting is going to be very basic and very simple. And that's going to be the best because you're going to be sitting in the dirt sometimes. Sometimes you'll be sitting, you know, on little tin buckets. Sometimes, you know, sometimes a dog will bite you, you know, you just don't want to have nice, beautiful things. And also if you look super nice and fancy, then you're more likely to be robbed and more likely to be targeted. So overall, I would just be against that. And also they're like professional dress, just wearing a skirt is professional, looks nice enough. The other thing is shoe wise, you are walking constantly and you're walking not, at least all of my areas, I wasn't walking on a sidewalk or nice pavement. You're walking in like, imagine like a hiking trail, but a little bit bigger. Like that's basically how their roads are. It's just dirt and lots of rocks. So my favorite pair of shoes ended up being my Keens that I took to wear on the beach, but I ended up wearing them every day proselyting. And I think other girls also wore different, you know, shoes like that. And it was totally fine. like the mission president didn't have any problem with it. Like because that way you didn't get like foot funguses and you didn't have as many feet problem. So, you know, my favorite outfits was, you know, one of my exercise shirts, like a skirt, and, you know, my Keens, like that was my go-to outfit every day. And then, other than that, oh yeah, there's lots of mosquitoes there. So the probability of you getting dengue or chikungunya, or I've heard about the Zika virus now, at least getting dengue is pretty high, or at least having something from the mosquitoes, you know, is very probable. But they do give you mosquito repellent. So this is kind of gross, but I went through a bottle of mosquito repellent a week. So I was like overly aggressive about using it just because I didn't want to get any diseases. So I would put it on in the morning before we left. I put it in the afternoon after our language study, and then I put it on about 4 or 5 when the mosquitoes really started to come out. And so that really helped me and protected me from getting lots of mosquito bites. But just be cautious of that and be generous with your mosquito repellent because the church provides it for that reason. And it's funny because some people would be like, oh, I like your perfume. And you'd be like, you mean my mosquito repellent? Thanks. Other packing advice. Yeah, just keep everything like simple and light. And I would, maybe take 1 or 2 cardigans for every once in a while that it gets cold, but other than that, you should be good. Oh yeah, one thing that I would also advise against is the skirts with like the slip inside, and then there's like a design on top. Those are so hot because the skirt inside like sticks to you. So I had like a few like that, and they were the worst, and I wore them like twice and gave them away to somebody. So I would just stick to, you know, like really easy, like comfortable, like knit materials, or like the stretchy materials are the best. Don't worry, you can look pretty when you come home. You don't have to look pretty on your mission. The craziest food I had was definitely like a snail once. This member, she just like had gone up to the mountain and she had like these little snails that she had caught. And I think she cooked them, but it was like so weird. And you're supposed to like suck it out of their little shell. And I remember that my companion, so she came out and gave it to my companion first, and then she went back into the oven for me, and so my companion like chucked it because she didn't want to eat it. And then she like came back out, she's like, oh yeah, so good. And then she came out and she brought one for me, and I was like, oh no. And then she sat down and I was like, oh no, I'm actually gonna have to eat this thing. And so then I was trying to like suck out the snail, and of course like I couldn't, right? I wasn't trying very hard. And then the member like went back in and like got it out for me, and then she's like, oh, here you go. And I was like, ah. But I just swallowed really quick, and yeah, luckily that's over. But it was an experience, and at least I can say that I've eaten a snail now. So so New Year's Eve, you know, everybody parties and drinks. And so we're like walking along, and there's like this drunk guy, and he like totally comes in for like a kiss. He's like on like right next to me, like almost on top of me. And I'm like freaking out. And I just see my companion, Hermana Piquet, is such a boss. She like comes over and like whacks me with her umbrella. And he just like looks at her and just like stumbles away. But that was one of my favorite experiences. It was just so funny. And then one time we had to go, I like had dropped my, what's it called, missionary tag? My placa. It had like fallen somehow. And we were about to be late for curfew, but it was like on this other street that we had just done kind of a square to go around because there's this huge field right there. And I was like, oh, Hermana, like we have to go back to look for my missionary tag because it's probably out there. And I was like, okay, let's just go really quick. I was like, let's just cut through this field. And she was like, I'm not sure about that. I was like, no, it's going to be okay. It's just like, come on. And so we start walking through this field, and literally after like 5 steps, we're both like immersed in mud. And like I have like mud like up to my thighs, and she slipped and fell in the mud, and we're just like, I don't even know what was in there, like crawling all over us. But we were just like freaking out and screaming because we're girls. There's like mud all over us. And then the people that we had just been visiting, I think they heard us. And so they came out. They're like, Hermanas, what's going on? And we're like, They're like, what are you doing? When they saw us walking through this field. And so we like got out miraculously somehow of this like mud pit. And then we like went to their house, and they were like, no, you can't go home until you clean up. So we went back, and yeah, we like cleaned up, and it was really embarrassing because we were covered in mud. And then we were walking, and then we walked home, and I didn't find my tag, but it's okay. I think one of the hardest parts of my mission, well, in my second area in Campana, we were actually teaching someone named Fernando, and we had gone to his house a few times, and we had taught him, and we had invited him to be baptized, and he had accepted, which we were really excited about. And then a few days later, I got this phone call, and we had just had transfers, and my companion had just left the area, and she was my second trainer, and so I was kind of sad. And it was like the very first week, and I like picked up the phone, and I was only like 3 months out, so sometimes my Spanish was a little sketch. It wasn't very good. And then I answered the phone, and Fernando's sister had called us, and she said that Fernando had been shot. And that was just a moment where I think I was just kind of went in shock. And like I had a new companion, like I was trying to take care of the area and like teach my companion the area. And I think it was a moment that just really struck me that, you know, life is really short, and that we should definitely take advantage of the opportunities that we have to follow Christ. And I remember we went over the next day to his house, and his mom and his sisters were just so upset, obviously, and just mourning. And we went over there quite a few times in the next few weeks to just try to be there for them. And I think that experience just helped me realize that, you know, we definitely have to take our opportunities to follow Christ now. And we actually talked to his family because he had accepted the invitation to be baptized, and so I asked them if we could do the work for him. And so when I came home, my brother actually went and did the baptism for him, and then we went and did initial tours and did the endowment session for him, with the permission of his family, of course. And I think that I was just so grateful that we had followed the mission. You know how they tell you to invite people to be baptized on the first or second lesson? That was always really hard for me. But in that moment, I was so grateful that I had, because that was probably our third time meeting with him, and we invited him to do it, even though we had just taught about the Book of Mormon. And I was so grateful that we had, because he said yes, and because he said yes, that opened the door to me being able to ask his family if we could do the work for him vicariously. And, you know, I think that we should always, you know, try to follow the rules as best we can, and how they tell us to teach, even though it's hard sometimes, because there's blessings that come from it. And I think that was one of the biggest blessings I ever saw. And I just felt the Spirit so strongly from that. The greatest life lesson I learned on my mission, I think, so I grew up here in Utah, and I'm studying here at BYU, so I haven't really had the opportunity to share the gospel as much as I would have liked to, but I think on the mission, I just learned how much joy comes from sharing the gospel. And it says in Preach My Gospel in the first page that you'll experience more joy than you ever had through, you know, bringing souls to Christ, something along those lines. And I think I just felt that joy so strongly on my mission. And I hope that I can always be an example and share the gospel to others, because this gospel is the gospel of joy. And it does bring families together, and it does allow us to be happy. And so I hope that I can always be that example, and that I can follow Christ no matter what. Something else that really helped me on my mission was that it helped me put my priorities straight, because I think before I would always get lost, like, oh, I have school, I have work, I have 5,000 other things to do, and I would put God on the last place. And I think my mission really taught me that if you put God first in your life, then he'll put you first. And so even though I might, have 2 tests coming up this week and, like working, but as long as you make sure you're reading your scriptures and praying and you're going to the temple and going to church, then he'll make sure that you're okay. You might not be the best and it might not be amazing, but you'll make it through, and he'll help you. I feel like I definitely learned how to connect more with people. And I feel like one of the greatest things that I learned was just when you go to people's houses, and I feel like at least on my mission and as a missionary, I feel like people really opened up their hearts to you, and they would really tell you how they felt. And I think on my mission, I really learned what it was like to mourn with those that mourn, and to know how Christ feels with us. Because obviously Christ knows exactly what we're going through, and he knows how we feel. But on your mission, you'll have so many different experiences where someone will open up to you, and maybe they've just gone through a hard divorce, or maybe someone has just died, or something that you have never experienced and you may never experience, but in that moment you will know exactly how they feel, and you will feel Christ's love for them. And I think that was one of the most amazing things that I felt on my mission, and just being able to feel that love for others. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm most grateful for. So if you've just received your mission call to Honduras, San Pedro Sula West Mission, or San Pedro Sula Oeste, it's going to be the best time ever, and you have literally just gotten your call to the best mission in the world. I know everybody says that, but this mission really is the best. The people are amazing, the food is awesome, and be prepared for the things that are there, but know that you are going to the best place ever, and it's going to be beautiful, and the members are awesome, and as long as you love them, they'll love you right back. And just being like a gringa, they'll love you, which is great. And you might get asked on the bus sometimes, like, are your eyes real? Or are they contacts? And you'll be like, yeah, they're real. There'll be a great opportunity to contact, and you should just be so excited, because you're going to have the best opportunity of your life, and to take every single day of your 18 months and enjoy every day you have in Honduras, because every day that I've been home now, all I want to do is be back there. So enjoy every single day. Even if it's hard and hot and painful, it's still the best. And hopefully, one day you'll get to go back and enjoy some more, because it really is such an amazing country.